What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to MLB Swing for the Fences, MLB DFS show here on the Run Pure Sports YouTube channel. It's Wednesday, August 27th. Got another big slate on our hands tonight. 10 games to choose from. Some wild early baseball stats. A lot of home runs in the early window. Hopefully more fireworks tonight. How you doing, Stats, on this Wednesday afternoon?
Doing great, man. Seeing you back-to-back days. That's it's unusual, but I'm liking it.
Unusual. That's a good word for it. I like your word of choice there.
Diplomatic.
Happy to be back talking ball with Stats, of course, coming off kind of a crazy slate last night. I personally didn't get a ton right. Kikuchi was bad. The Royals were bad. Patrick Corbin put up 35 fantasy points against the Angels. One of those night stats where I was happy not to have a $3,000 ticket because I would have been you would have been scrolling down a while to find old draft sheet down there. So kind of a crazy slate. Hopefully tonight goes a little bit better, at least for me, than it did last night. How did your night end up last night, Stats?
Yeah, it wasn't the greatest of nights. I'm with you there on the Corbin, but AP had a nice little hit with Corbin in there. I think AP hit for 10K, so that was a nice one. Yeah, I mean, if I had to pick a pitcher to score 35, it would have been a long time before I got to Corbin last night. But that's the thing. This is why I like the Angels.
Yeah,
because they're I don't like them because they could totally crap the bed, but I like them because they're up there. There's a big gap. Like they've got a huge upside and big downside. So pitchers against them on occasion, you could get a bunch of strikeouts against that team. And when they go off, there's a lot of good power bats in that lineup. So they make for a lot of interesting nights in the DFS streets.
Yeah, they remind me of the Yankees a little bit. People give me a hard time on the show for always being on the Yankees, but it's like you just see it. I mean, you saw it this morning, the power that this team has. They have more potential to break the slate than almost any team on any night. So, you just got to stick with teams like that through the ups and the downs a little bit. Angels are like that too, right? Tons of power, but also tons of big games against them. I certainly didn't see the 35 for Patrick Corbin coming. And yeah, our guy AP, nice 10K score. He was feeling a little frisky at the pitcher spot. The Corbin-Payante combination took the 35 from Corbin. He did take the -2 from Payante, so he got both sides of the dice roll starting pitcher. But congrats to AP, nice score. Headed into football season, I'm sure we'll see that money back in play on the Chiefs somewhat soon in a week and a half here. With that, Sats, we do got 10 games to talk about, so let's jump right into it. We start off in Toronto for the Twins and the Blue Jays. Blue Jays will go with lefty Eric Lauer, who has actually pitched pretty damn well for the Blue Jays this season, kind of under the radar season for him. He's got an ERA below 3, a whip close to 1. Did throw 102 pitches last time out. That was 11 days ago. They got Shane Bieber back in the rotation. So I think Lauer's going to lose his spot, but he gets another go-round here with Bieber wanting to get extra rest. Do you think he's pretty interesting against the Twins, who obviously have a lineup that can strike out a lot, not a lot of great bats in here? Frankly, most of the bats that do swing it well will have to face Lauer left versus left. So I don't know what you think about pitching overall in the slate, Stats, but to me it seems pretty wide open. I do like the top options, but I see a lot of guys that are reasonable plays, more so than I usually would on a 10-game slate. Lauer, one of the guys that does make the cut for me. Not so with Woods Richardson. Just don't like going up against this Blue Jays team. We had the massive game from George Springer yesterday. And I think this Blue Jays lineup back in play. I do usually like playing them as 5-man stacks. Yesterday's Springer performance notwithstanding. But, in on the Blue Jays, really pitching and hitting-wise, and mostly out on the Twins. Buxton, Jeffers at the top of the lineup I think are reasonable plays, but won't have too many Twins in my lineup. We'll probably get Lauer in 1 or 2. Your thoughts, your Stats, Blue Jays and Twins.
Yeah, I think you said it right as far as the overall on this slate. There's a couple of pitchers that I think are kind of head and shoulders above the rest here maybe tonight, and then you've got a lot of other ones that are close. I would put Lauer in that spot of he's going to make it in, into my pool. Don't necessarily have him at a higher ownership number, but definitely in play. Simeon, Woods, Richardson, not in play for me.
Yep.
Lauer 4.5 Ks, heavy juice to the over in the prop market, 15.5 juice to the under. So that's a little concerning. So they're really not looking for him to go very deep in this game. Not even looking, maybe looking 5 innings on average here based on that prop. So that would be the one concern. Decent K per inning number. Like I said, if it's 4.5 juice to the over, it's in that ballpark of 1K per inning. So I think the the upside on Lauer may be a little bit capped, but certainly in the pool of pitchers here for me. And you look at the bats. I think this is Toronto only that I'm interested in. I like the Toronto, their big bats: Springer, Barger, Guerrero, Varsho, to name the 4 that I really, really like. And I would throw Bo Bichette in there. I really just kind of like those guys. I'm not too high on the bats towards the bottom there. Lukes, Jimenez, and Schneider and Heineman. So I kind of just like 5 bats. If I'm going to play 5-man stacks with Toronto, I will open it up to Lukes and Jimenez just to get some of those cheaper bats in there. But those 5 main bats I really do like for Toronto.
Yeah, sometimes you don't have to overthink it. The 5 best bats for Toronto, hitting first 5 in the order. If you're stacking them on one lineup, I'd probably just try to squeeze in that big 5 and go with it with the Blue Jays. Clearly the best 5 bats there. Totally agree. We can move on to the next game. Mets and Phillies. Always a fun series here. We've got veteran Taijuan Walker going for the Phillies, who has been better than I expected him to be, especially recently. I'm not going to use Walker against this Mets lineup, but a little bit lower on the Mets than I expected to be after digging into Taijuan Walker a little bit. I do think he's okay right now. And then Mets will go with rookie Nolan McLean making his 3rd start. He's been awesome through 2 starts, 8 strikeouts against the Mariners, then 7 strikeouts against the Mets, just 2 earned runs allowed overall. They appear to be giving him a full shot at kind of staying in this rotation. 91 and 94 pitches in those 2 games, made it 7 and 5 1/3 innings. So you have to look at McLean, I think, as a full go pitcher, 90+ pitch count type of guy. And he's looked good. The stuff looks good for him. This is one where, maybe you can talk me off him. I think it might be a little fancy to play McLean at 9K when you've got Framber, Sonny Gray, and I think some good pitching cheap options. But I do like what I see from McLean. And, he'll face, as long as he can handle Schwarber and Harper, which easier said than done, of course, this lineup is not that threatening. So a little bit of interest in McLean. Curious where he ended up on him. I'm not going to Walker, and I'm mostly out on bats in this game. Obviously, you can play Schwarber and Harper, but given my thoughts on McLean, I'll probably look elsewhere for my big spends at hitting. Your thoughts, your stats, Phillies and Mets.
Yeah, I really like what I'm seeing with McLean, and the model has him at the 5th pitcher on the slate, the 9K, and you look at the betting markets too. I think they're kind of underpricing his strikeouts. He's 5.5 with heavy juice to the under. I'm not sure if the market has really gotten around, because last time out I kind of just went with the market, and in the back of my mind I remember his first start watching it, and just the stuff was nasty, and I was like, boy, they're really underselling him. And I got burned on that by just kind of relying on the market. I don't know if they've really adjusted yet, and I think possibly we could be getting in early. It looks like, DraftKings is adjusted on the price, but I don't know if the betting markets have necessarily adjusted, because to me, the 5.5 number seems fine. It's just I would have this one juice the other way. So what I'm saying is I do like the McLean overs here, and I think he's a little bit better than what the betting markets are saying. So the fact I've got the model really, which is based off of that, has him 5th, I would bump him up just a little bit from where I have him. So I do like McLean but just overall, just what I've seen as a real life pitcher. I really like his stuff. And this Philly team they have strikeouts in that lineup. Another one of these lineups, obviously a ton of power, but we can get some Ks in that lineup as well. So I do like McLean. No real interest in Walker. at all. So as I mentioned, McLean's 5.5 Ks juiced under 16.5 on his pitching outs. Now offensively, look, I like the Mets again. I like their big bats. Kind of it's a similar story all the time with the Mets, but Alonso, Soto, and Lindor. The Mets had a nice win yesterday after getting out to that early lead, blowing it, and then coming back on Doran. But yeah, it's getting interesting with these two teams. If Mets can win this game, they really narrow it. They've got a shot, which looked hopeless there maybe a week ago, to get back and win this division. So we'll see. And I think McLean, and they've got another kid that they just called up, so we'll see how he looks. But I'm forgetting his name now. But his stuff looked pretty good down in the minor leagues. Maybe they're gonna get there with some young pitching, because I think the pitching has kind of been lacking for them. The bats have been doing well, so I like the Met bats in this game over the Philly bats, and I like McLean. So for this one's all New York for me.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Good pitchers on fire for McLean as well. I'm glad to hear you're on board with the McLean play. One of those where sometimes when you think you see something that maybe the market doesn't, obviously try to take advantage of that in DFS. And do you think he'll come in around the 10% ownership that Sabres got projected? Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it was lower than that.
Yeah, it's possible. I think the 10 is a decent estimate, but yeah, I don't know. It's hard. It's always hard to kind of gauge. I'm not hearing a ton.
Yeah,
like people aren't all like, you go on X or whatever. I'm not seeing a ton of like, oh my God, this is the second coming type of thing. So I think the market's still going to be kind of behind them, especially the 9K. They're like, they're bumping them up to 9K already. We've got, like you mentioned, we do have some probably better options. They're a little bit higher price, but I think everyone's going to, if you're going to pay 9K, people are going to be going elsewhere, I think, to maybe a Framber over the 10 and Sonny Gray at 95.
Yeah, I think so too. I bet it won't be more than 10% for McLean, but we're both in on him at the ownership tonight. Let's get to the third game on this slate. It is the Diamondbacks and the Brewers. This one in Milwaukee will be, kind of a neutral park, decent for home runs tonight in Milwaukee. I think the roof is open. Milwaukee was planning to go with Priester, who was listed as a starting pitcher for most of the day. Then they said Ashby will open, and then they said Priester will not pitch. So looks like it'll be opener lefty Aaron Ashby. He pitched just 2 days ago, so I assume it'll just be one inning, maybe two from Ashby. I would be pretty surprised if he went beyond that. And then it'll be Eric Fetty behind Ashby, who seems like he's pitched for like 7 organizations this year. Started with the Cardinals, pitched for the Braves. He's with the Brewers now. I'm not sure if there's one more, but he's obviously a pitcher, who can't hang on with pitching staffs that need the help in the Cardinals and the Braves. So, I think this Diamondbacks team maybe is a contrarian option. The problem is you're not getting any discounts on the guys that you like. Marte, Perdomo, and Carroll, all very expensive, but still a pretty good spot for those guys. And I think under the radar. And then Ryan Nelson will go for the D-backs, kind of a run-of-the-mill righty, throws a ton of fastballs. And once again, I'll be going back to the Brewers on some of my lineups. As always, I think they will be lower owned than they should be, which is obviously what we want in DFS. So, this Brewers lineup, I think you can play most of these guys. The top half does look better, but I think they're pretty good plays. Looking at ownership here on the Brewers, as usual, looks like nobody going to them tonight, but I'm not really scared of Ryan Nelson. Bad bullpen behind him, and this Brewers team we know can put up runs in a hurry. So I do like the Brewers as a contrarian stack tonight. Off of the pitching here, stats, what about you? Diamondbacks and Brewers.
I actually like Nelson probably what it sounds like more than you do. So, I mean, I've got Nelson as the 4th best option. Like I said, I'm going to kind of bump McLean above him, but just running the model without making any adjustments, Nelson comes in 4th. And you look at the betting market, I mean, that's a pretty good prop here. 5.5 Ks for him. It is juiced to the under at that price tag of 7,700. So I like that. 17.5 outs is the prop for his pitching outs. So I just think the numbers here at that price tag are pretty good. And So he's one of the cheaper options, sub 8K options that I do like. So I've got some interest here on Ryan Nelson. Offensively, it's I for that reason I probably like these Milwaukee bats a little bit less than you do.
Yeah.
The thing with Arizona, it's like you said, you've got the kind of their big bats with Carroll and Marte and Gurriel, but it's a tale of two different of I guess not two cities, but a tale of two different halves of their lineup. You could play some of their big bats, and I like them pretty much going forward as secondary stacks. They're just going to be a tough fit, I think, in full game stacks, playing some of these weaker hitters. I mean, if you get McCarthy in there, 2,400, not a terrible punt option, but I would prefer taking the Arizona bats as secondary stacks and one-offs with their big bats. Obviously, Carroll being the big one here. So Vaughn on the other side, not bad at 3,900 first base. Definitely a lot of pop. Probably the most. I think he's the highest projected in this game for a home run. So that's another one I don't mind playing. Obviously in my non-Nelson lineups as a one-off piece at first base. So yeah, not a ton of offensive interest, and I will have Nelson. Seemingly, what do we have him at on Saber as far as ownership?
15%, I think I saw.
15, yeah, okay. I might be a little bit higher than that when it's all said and done.
You like him more than Lauer?
Do I like him more than Lauer? Yeah, I mean, I do like him just a little bit more than I like Lauer. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, I do lean the Lauer side, but I can see that being close. And man, I don't know. These ownerships for the Brewers bats, 5% or below for the top 5 bats in this lineup feels like a good play to me. I know Nelson's a decent pitcher, but we've seen these Brewers come through in tougher matchups than this. So I do have interest in them as what looks like a very contrarian stack on this slate. Let's get to the White Sox and the Royals up next. Certainly the Royals disappointed me last night, absolutely owned by the veteran Martin Perez. They'll get rookie Ryan Bergert here for the Royals, who he's pitched well too. It's been like 5 straight solid or good starts for Bergert, who I was kind of picking on him when he first got in the rotation and kind of backpedaled on that take a little bit. I think he looks okay to me, does Bergert. Obviously, a pretty good matchup here against the White Sox. Now, it's not nearly the same matchup that it was in the first half of the season when this team couldn't, hit its way out of a wet paper bag. But I still don't mind the matchup for Bergert. He's another one of the pitchers, when I talked about the slate, I think being kind of wide open at pitching. He's one that, he does make the cut for me. Bergert down at looks like around 5 to 10% ownership for him. So I do have some interest there. Again, I think you could play White Sox for sure, but I lean the Bergert side of the equation myself. And then Aaron Savale going for the White Sox. Just not enough strikeouts, I don't think, here against the Royals, but I'm not going back to the Royals tonight myself. Painful enough last night. I'll let someone else play the Royals. Maybe that'll be you, Stats. What are you doing with KC and Chicago here?
Yeah, so I mean, Savali for me, not enough strikeouts, like you said. 3.5 Ks is his prop. One of the worst K per inning guys on this entire slate. I've got Bergert like just slightly better though, to be honest. I mean, his strikeout numbers are a bit better, 4.5, but heavily not heavy, but juiced to the under, and only 15.5 outs, which is also juiced to the under. So, kind of nervous about how far they're really anticipating him going in this game, and he's not a real dominant strikeout pitcher. I just think we've got some better options in this price range than Bergert. So I might be just leaving both of these pitchers off my player pool. I think you could come back to Kansas City. Are they my favorite stack? No, but we've got, again, they're kind of the top of their top hitters, their better hitters are really strong plays on most nights. Witt, Perez, Yaz, Pasquantino, and then and you could throw Massey in there as well at just 2K. So I do think you can make some five-man stacks there with those 5 in particular that I like. Don't really like anything on the White Sox side, but they're probably Kansas City, maybe my 6th best 5-man stack, I think, on this slate. So I'm not going crazy with them, but if you want to get back on the horse, I don't mind it. And then, like I said, adding in that Massey at 2K really opens things up for you with maybe playing a little bit more expensive secondary stack with them.
Yeah, Stats doesn't like it, but Berger does get a pretty big bump with no Montgomery, especially no Robert in the lineup. And yeah, I mean, Berger last 3 starts struck out 7 against the same White Sox team 2 starts ago, 8 strikeouts 3 starts ago against the Twins, and got 5 versus Detroit. So he's been pretty solid, and I do kind of like what I see from him a little bit. So I'll stick with some Berger love, especially at that low price and ownership. And then, yeah, I get it with KC, but yeah, there are spots that I just like better on this slate. So not going to be for me tonight. Let's get to the second half of this slate. For those watching and enjoying the show, hit the like button for us. Helps us out. And if you do want to go over to Run Pure Sports, football just around the corner. We've got more college football tomorrow night, this weekend, and then, of course, NFL. The juggernaut starts a week from tomorrow. We got everything you need over at Run Pure Sports, DFS, and otherwise. Check us out, runpuresports.com. Use promo code RPS15 for 15% off your first payment. All right, let's get out to St. Louis. Busch Stadium will play pitcher friendly tonight. We've got Sonny Gray going for St. Louis. He's been kind of up and down. He's had more than his fair share of blow-up starts this year, but a lot of good ones too. A lot of gems out of Sonny Gray. Certainly this matchup against the Pirates would be one that you would expect him to end up on the good side of the ledger. I know they went off last night, but yeah, I think Sonny Gray gets the Cardinals pitching back on track here, 9,500. I do think Stats, again, I'm going to talk about a lot of pitchers that I kind of like at ownership, but like if you're playing cash games or, I don't know, single entry, like Framber and Sonny Gray feels kind of, just the two best plays. There's plenty of value bats to get in. So I am in on Sonny Gray. He, of course, will have some relatively high ownership. Yeah, 35% or so on Sonny Gray, I think seems fair. And then Pirates will go with Mlodzinski to open. He's on 3 days rest and hasn't thrown more than 50 pitches since June. So I would expect him to be around 40 to 50 pitches. That's probably 2 or 3 innings for Mlodzinski. And then it should be top pitching prospect Bubba Chandler in for the Pirates in long relief. Now, you never know for sure on the long relief stuff. And it is the Pirates, who I would say they're one of the more likely organizations or teams to just do something weird and not use him or use a couple relievers before him or something. I mean, who knows? But I do think the most likely scenario is Chandler gets a chance to go 4, 5, maybe 6 innings. He was fully stretched out in the minor leagues. Again, I'm not sure exactly what their plan is with him, but he does have a good matchup here coming in after Mlodzinski, who will be, ineligible to get the win. And Chandler, obviously he's a top prospect for a reason. Good stuff from him. So 6,300 for him. Looks like he'll be around 10% owned on DraftKings. I got some interest in Bubba Chandler. I will say his stuff didn't grade out as well as I hoped it would coming up from the minor leagues. Now, just one start, there can be variance in that, but it does have me backing off a little bit compared to if we saw, just eye-popping stuff metric-wise from Chandler, which at least in the first start we didn't quite see. So, yeah, pitching here I think is interesting. I'm mostly off the bats myself. Your thoughts here, Stats, Pirates, and Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, offensively, I'll make it real easy. I'm not playing anything from the bats. So I'm going to kind of X all those out. Sonny Gray I've got as the number 2 option. I mean, I agree. It's basically Framber and Gray is going to be – those would be your 2 biggest, highest owned and the 2 best options by far, I think, on this slate. Certainly projecting out. Nobody really projects out close. We know it doesn't always play out that way, but on paper, right, those are the best. Those are the best 2 options. I think Chandler is the real interesting part of the equation here. I do think he gets in. I can't get too heavy. I know you love these kind of plays more than I usually do, but at the 6,300, I think it's not. You're right. I think the metric here and his K per inning, it's not he's not like a 1.2 K per inning guy.
Right.
It's just under 1. So I don't want to get overly excited, but I do think sprinkling him in 150 build, even if you're playing 20, you want to throw 1 in there with Chandler. I think it's probably worth it, because I don't know, outside of those top 2 pitchers, and I think both of them have the ability, as we've seen recently, to get kind of lit up.
Yep.
The rest of the pitching is all real close. So I don't know if I necessarily want to get off on or not be on a guy here in Chandler, who at the lowest price tag that I'm probably of anyone that I'm willing to take, who knows, might want to get him in the mix. So I think just kind of sprinkling in some Chandler is going to be worth it for me, at least tonight. I mean, 10%. I don't know if I'm going to get to 10%, but I'll have a bit of them. Somewhere high single digits.
I got similar feelings on Chandler. Might get him in on one of my 5, maybe not, just depending on how the builds shake out after the show. Not opposed to using him, but yeah, there are certainly risks and, just performance risks too. So you kind of add it all up. And also these long relievers, I much prefer to play them when they're like the Stone 4K or whatever, 6,300, is a fair price, I think, considering all the unknowns around Bubba Chandler. But someone to sprinkle in, I think, for people playing a lot of lineups. And, he's a fun guy to root for if you want to get that top prospect in your lineup for cheap, low ownership. I certainly understand the Chandler play. With you on the bats, completely off of Pittsburgh and St. Louis for hitters. We'll look elsewhere. Let's go to the Angels and the Rangers up next. This one back in Texas. Of course, a pitcher-friendly park overall here. Texas will turn to another lefty after Patrick Corbin last night. Jacob Latz will go for them. He's been a reliever for the most part. Has pitched, in relief in 4 straight outings, I believe. Did throw 84 pitches back on July 20th and is on full rest here. So not sure what the props say on Latz in terms of how far he's going to go in this game. So we'll let you inform us on that. And then Jack Kohanowitz going for the Angels. Definitely a guy to target against. Been specifically bad against lefties. You can certainly play righties against him, but Smith, Seager, Peterson, and maybe Rowdy Tellez down there in the 7-hole, the main targets for me, but certainly can run up a full 5-man against Kohanowitz without issue. Angels were hurtful last night for the most part against Corbin. In theory, get another good matchup here against Jake Latz. A lot going on in this game. Stats, where'd you end up with Angels and Rangers?
Yeah, so I mean, Latz doesn't have a number on any of these books as far as his pitching outs go. So I think we're probably looking, we're looking at something like less than 5 innings. I think that's what's kind of keeping him down for me. He's the best K per 9 guy on this slate, and it's not by a lot. There's no real great K per inning pitcher. There's no great ones on the slate, but he's kind of in the 1.1 range. Also a guy who is going to be a little wild. So he's probably got the worst control on this slate as well. And that's always good for upside, guys who can get your strikeouts, but also have that high walk rate. So 7,500, I think he's in play here for me on a kind of a weak pitching slate. Kohanowitz, I've got really no interest in. So look, we always like the Angel bats. I talk about them all the time. We talked about them in the beginning of the show. There's always upside with the Angels, but we've always got they've got the ability, as we saw with Corbin, to kind of give the opposing pitcher a good night. So that's why I want to get a little bit of Latz in there. But I think Angel bats worth playing, but Texas bats for sure I like quite a bit. And we've got some decent prices on these bats as well. So we can get some cheap Texas stacks in there. Peterson, Higashioka, Garcia at 3,500. With Seager, of course, at 4,600, kind of the top for them. I do like the bats for Texas a little bit more than the Angels, but I think for me this is mostly going to be an offensive game. I like stacking. I like Texas stacks. The Texas main, 5-man stacks quite a bit. With the Angels, kind of seeing the Angels actually going to rate out on the on the tournament edge is one of the top tournament edge teams on the entire slate, and they've got a pretty good boom rating. So I think you want to really play both of these teams in stacks tonight, both in primary stacks and obviously secondary stacks.
Yeah, and Angels gonna be high up on that tournament list, as you said, despite some reasonably high ownership. Looks like 10% plus on most of the Angels that you'd want. But yeah, tons of power. Latz has actually looked pretty good in his limited innings so far, but certainly a good spot for the Angels as well. I do like a couple other spots better, especially at decent ownership, but certainly understand the upside with the Angels. And yeah, the Texas bats is mostly where I'm looking in this game myself. I think they're in a really good spot here against Kohanowitz and really bad Angels bullpen behind him as well. Let's go out to Houston for the Rockies and the Astros. We've talked about him in passing quite a bit already. Framber Valdez looks like he's going to be around 40% owned, highest owned pitcher and most expensive pitcher on the slate, 10.3K on DraftKings for Framber Valdez, who has been quite bad in 3 of his last 4 starts, including a really rough outing, 7 earned runs last time out against Detroit. Some minor red flags for Valdez. Velocity was down in his last start. I think that was mostly just due to, I think the first 6 hitters reached base against him. Sometimes you see pitchers kind of wear down after that. I think that's probably what happened with Valdez. We talked about some warning signs with Brown yesterday, but I also talked about it's the Rockies, and you just kind of hope that the pitchers their normal selves. And yeah, Brown was obviously good, got the strikeouts. I would expect Valdez to do the same. I do think he is the best pitching play on this slate. I do think he deserves to be highest owned. And then Colorado will go with Chase Dollander. He's been really bad this year. He has been okay when he's pitched away from home, obviously away from Coors Field. And he does have pretty good stuff, but I don't think I'm going to get to Dollander here at 5K. I do have interest in these Houston bats. Jordan Alvarez in particular at 5K still looks like a really good play to me. And then no Rockies for me, even as leverage stacks against Valdez. Just not going to do it on this slate. Your thoughts here, stats, Astros and Rockies.
Yeah, so I mean, you mentioned it. Valdez, we've talked about. I think he's the best pitching option that we have on the slate. If you don't want to get to, he will be high owned. He'll be the highest owned pitcher. You could certainly make the case that if you want to get under on Valdez, we pretty much the same situation we talked about with Brown, like you said earlier. I just, against this lineup, it's hard for me to kind of get tricky. I'm like, the floor is just too high for these pitchers with the pitcher of this caliber. If they burn us, they burn us. But I just really don't want to be under the market. It's kind of what you saw like in the high stakes last night. I think Brown wound up being like 50%, right? And I think we were looking at 30% on the lotto, right? So I expect something very similar. I think in the high stakes games, we're going to see Valdez with much higher ownership because I just think between Valdez and Gray, they're really just head and shoulders above everyone else, again, on paper. But that's all we could go with right now. If you want to get a little tricky, and especially if you're playing a single entry lineup and you want to go elsewhere, that's fine by me because, like you said, Valdez, the last few starts, we've had some clunkers in there, but certainly the best option that I see on the slate. And I agree with you, Colorado. I just can't. I don't want to get contrarian with Colorado. That's just not going to happen. So if Valdez doesn't have a good game, it's just going to be, I think, more that he's just not getting the strikeouts. I just can't see him getting lit up here in this game. So it's Houston bats. I don't like the Houston bats as much as I did last night, but still the top bats here. Alvarez was one of the top plays for me yesterday. I'll get back on that horse. Walker and Altuve really rounded out, but you could go through most of this lineup, and I think all these guys are playable. Just not going to go as heavy on the Houston stacks as I did maybe yesterday, but certainly in play for me.
You're out on Dollander, I assume?
Dollander, no interest. Yeah, it's hard for me to take a guy who is projected for the highest earned runs, and he's not a big strikeout pitcher. 4.5 Ks juice to the under. I mean, they're looking at 2.5 earned runs juice to the over with only 14.5 pitching out. So just not a ton of interest, even at that 5K price tag for me.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I don't think he's a crazy play at 5K, but I probably won't get to him myself. And then, yeah, Valdez does look good. I will say, anytime you get the a really high price pitcher at high ownership, right? I don't think he's a must play at 40%. Sounds like you agree with that.
I do. No, I could totally get it. I think in my 150 builds, I'm going to be close to that,
Yeah.
maybe even over. But to kind of touch on Dolander, obviously I don't really like him, but on a pitching slate like this,
Yeah.
I don't mind if you want to just throw in a handful of them if you're building 150 just because of the price tag. Like, it just may work that's the only guy you're probably going to play. I mean, it's your only option. He's the cheapest pitcher on the slate here. So if that's the only guy you're going to play down there, you might get that. He doesn't have to necessarily go off. It just fits because you play him with Valdez maybe and go elsewhere with some bats and maybe get a little different there. So it's possible on a slate where I don't really particularly love pitching. If you want to get down to him, I'm just gonna I've got to kind of cut it off at some point, and Dolander is not going to make it for me.
Yeah, just a 2.97 WOBA allowed for Dolander when he's pitched away from home, 3.95 ERA. So, yeah, he's been actually pretty good when he's been away from Coors Field. But we got to move on before I ruin my lineups by talking myself onto Chase Dolander. So we'll keep it moving to the Dodgers and the Reds. We go to 3 West Coast games here. We'll, of course, go back over pitching stacks, pick 6 after we talk about these 3 West Coast games. You've got Nick Lodolo going for the Reds here. Missed some time with, injury, had a blister. So probably is good to go here, but a little bit of pitch count risk. I like Lodolo a ton as a pitcher. I just don't know if I can get to him against the Dodgers at 8,200 with, I think, some pitch count risk as well. And then Shohei Ohtani will pitch for the Dodgers tonight. Can only use him as a pitcher on DraftKings this evening. He's been a little shaky 2 starts in a row. They did say before his last start, which was in Coors Field, that they wanted to get him through 5 innings in that start. It didn't happen, but I would assume the same is true here, especially since he didn't make it last time. I think they will try to get 5 innings out of Ohtani if he's pitching well. And, outside of Framber and maybe Sonny, I wouldn't really expect anyone to go beyond 6 innings today. So I think Ohtani could get the job done in 5 innings, I guess, is my long-winded way of saying it. I do think he's a good play tonight at 8,500 against a pretty weak Reds lineup. Like I said, I think I'm out on Lodolo here unless you convince me otherwise. And I don't love a ton of bats here. Quite a bit of respect for Lodolo as a pitcher. So obviously you can play the Dodgers. To me, there are better places to spend that money tonight. Your thoughts here, stats on Reds and Dodgers.
Yeah, I agree with you here. Lodolo's not going to make it for me, but I think Ohtani's interesting. You're gonna have a hard time kind of finding out props for him. I was looking over on Hard Rock. Most books don't have it. Hard Rock's got him heavy juiced 14.5 over, right? So it's kind of what you're looking at here. They're hoping to get that 5 innings out of him. The K prop for Ohtani is 5.5. With slightly juice to the over. So we're looking at, they're obviously Ohtani is a better than a K per inning guy. The upside is capped. They can't, if he gets the 5 innings, we got a good shot at getting the W with him as well. And it's just, I think this is a perfect slate to kind of play some Ohtani just because we just don't like a lot of these pitchers and get down to 8,500. I mean, I don't think he's getting you 35 tonight, but is 20 good enough to get you in the winner? It might be tonight. I think it very well could be. So I think Shohei could get you there. So I do have him in the mix. I got him as the 3rd pitcher just on the model. I'll probably knock him down just a little bit, but he's the 3rd best pitcher on my model. And then the bats, like I said, you don't get Shohei, so not as many bats that we can choose from. I still like these Dodger bats though. Betts and Teoscar and Pages and Freeman, the big bats, Will Smith. I like those bats. Just they're not as high as I liked them yesterday, but still they're gonna give you a pretty good tournament edge. But I look at a combination. I'm talking about the Boom Report for those if you're new. I I look at the tournament edge and then I look at the overall boom score, and like if those need to match up, and we're actually getting a pretty low boom score on the whole, and that's because you have no Ohtani in the lineup. So I think that does bring them down just a little bit, the Dodgers, for me, but it's still certainly a play. I think you're getting the Dodgers at a decent ownership here on the whole, and I think a lot of people don't play stacks when Ohtani is not. They kind of get off the Dodgers, so you will get a little bit. You're going to get not a little, but you're going to get a lot. They do rate out well as a tournament edge play tonight.
Yeah. I wish there was a prop to bet exactly 5 innings, exactly 15 outs from Ohtani, because that's what I think he's doing tonight. So, yeah, I think that could be enough to get on the winner. And, yeah, I would absolutely play Ohtani at 20 fantasy points at pitcher on the slate. I'm sure you would as well. I think he's got a decent chance to get there if he does get those 5 innings, which I think he'll do. Lone Wolf DFS will be a lone wolf tonight. He's on the Lodolo train. It'll be him and very few of his friends looking at less than 1% ownership on Nick Lodolo. Yeah, crazier plays out there than a talented Lodolo at that ownership. Not going to get there myself, but I do get it if trying to get way off the board. Let's go to the next game. We go to San Francisco. I think a very interesting game here. You've got Colin Rea going for the Cubs. Really kind of a boring arm, not a high strikeout pitcher whatsoever, but he is 6,700, and he does have both a good matchup and a good park to pitch in San Francisco, obviously. And then also Rea's big problem, his biggest issue by far, is left-handed power. This is the toughest park for left-handed power in all of baseball. So kind of insulated from that a little bit. I think Rea, a floor play for me at 6,700. The ceiling, not going to be there for him very often, but I think he's got a pretty good shot at 15 plus fantasy points. I think he should be in line for a win here stats, because I really like this Cubs offense. Checking in on ownership with them. Okay, yeah, so does the field a little bit at least. But yeah, Wisenhunt pitching for the Giants, thrown from the left side. Big struggles against right-handed hitters. He's not very good anyway, but does appear to have a true split. Cubs have some good ones, mostly free from pinch hit risk as well. Nico Herner, who will likely lead off, but I mean, Kelly, Shaw, Happ, Swanson, that 5-man, I like a ton here against Wisenhunt. And this park, obviously pitcher-friendly overall, but not too bad for right-handed power. As I mentioned, it's the lefties that really get dinged in this park. Giants bats, I'm not going to end up with a ton. They will be low-owned and, do have obviously a winnable matchup here against Colin Rea. So not the craziest contrarian stack to me. Not going to be for me, though. Your thoughts, your stats, Cubs and Giants.
So, yeah, the pitchers, I'm going to be off both pitchers in this game, even though good ballpark tend to like the pitching in this park, but I'm going to pass on both of these guys. We've got Wisenhunt 3.5 Ks, as is Rea, only 3.5 Ks in the prop market. Wisenhunt, they're only looking at 14.5 outs with 16.5 outs for Rea. So it's bats, and it's really the Cub bats. I think I'm in agreement with you here. You're going to get a decent tournament edge number. I don't think these Cub bats are going to be very high owned, so I think you're going to get a decent edge over the field. And a lot of the bats that you mentioned, I like here. They're big bats, of course, with Tucker and Suzuki, PCA, those guys with Horner and Happ and Turner. If Turner's in there, 2,400, that would be pretty good savings here to get you in. I like all those guys. So I do like Cub stacks. They're going to rate out, like I said, pretty well on the tournament edge on the boom sheet. So the boom score is up there as well. I think the Cubs decent play here tonight for stacks. I like them. They're going to be one of my top 5 stacks for sure.
Yeah, Cubs number 1 for me, specifically the righties. And yeah, talking to you stats, you clearly don't play quite as much into the splits against the starting pitcher.
Never look at it. Never look at it.
Okay.
I'm not a split. I'm not a BVP guy, and I'm not.
Me neither. But the splits are real stats. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, so my theory is always kind of everything.
They're baked into the lines, right?
It's baked into the line, so I just go with that. It's not that it's not important; it is, but it's usually baked into the line.
Fair enough, stats. You win again.
I'm always. I don't mind the debate. I don't mind it. at all.
I was expecting, I'd look at it, but it's not enough.
No, I don't. Listen, it's part of what I like about RPS. And granted, I'm putting out a bunch of the numbers, but I like to be able to just kind of look at something really quickly, like that boom report, and make my lineup from there. And I could look at a couple of the other things that we've got going on, especially if I'm trying to, I'm at a coin flip between a couple of players or something like that. So I like to be able to make it as easy as possible. I'm not going to sit for 5 hours trying to figure out my lineups.
Yeah, you got more than life than I do, so I'll keep looking at my split stats.
So apparently the Dodger lineup has come out. Someone's saying
no Freddie Freeman. I'm seeing, which of course for the one Lodolo fan out there tonight,
it helps
for him. Certainly helps. No Freeman. Let's get to the last game on the slate. It is in the hitter's paradise in Sacramento. Same weather as always, hot, humid, wind blowing out. We'll play extremely home run friendly tonight. We've got Casey Mize going for Tigers. Has been solid this year. Not going to be enough to take me off of these athletic bats, that's for sure, but hasn't pitched poorly at all. So credit to Mize on that one. And then Luis Morales going for the A's. It's actually pitched well twice in a row. I'm not buying it with Luis Morales, though. Another guy, back to the splits discussion, does have big splits against lefties. Has me pretty high on, especially Riley Green, Keith, Carpenter, Winfield Perez would be the four guys that I'm personally looking at most closely. Stats, pretty sure you're going to be on the offense in this game. Go ahead with Detroit and the A's.
Yeah, it's all about the offense here. Morales actually rates out decently, believe it or not, seventh, because this is such a weak slate pitching wise, and his K per inning number is not terrible. Morales they're only projected 15.5, and that's under 15.5 outs. The under, I should say, is has got the juice, and then 4.5 strikeouts with the juice to the over. So he's not a bad K per inning pitcher on a slate where we don't have that many really strong K per inning guys. So I don't mind just sprinkling in some at 7K, but yeah, the offenses are really what we're looking at. Mize, I have no interest in at all. Yeah, the top bats here, A's bats with Kurtz and Langoliers, Rooker, and then a lot of these Detroit bats, almost all the Detroit bats are pretty much every Detroit bat, assuming the lineup is what we're projecting it to be. They're all in play for me. So I like heavily stacking this game. Probably my favorite game to stack. It was yesterday. That ballpark always makes it. That ballpark's hitter friendly. We always want to look at those the bats in that lineup, and or in that those games. And Detroit, I think is going to project out as the best stack for me overall on this slate. So I like the Detroit stacks, and certainly going to play some athletic stacks as well.
Yeah, the nice thing about this ballpark, you can have a bad 4 or 5 innings to start the game, but the home runs are always in play, can come back in a hurry. Joe A. wondering about the boom report. There's both. We get an article that kind of outlines the best plays, the highlights of the boom report, value plays. And then at the bottom of that article, which is what I like to do, you can click on get the actual sheet, which will give you precise numbers on tournament, edge, leverage, and the actual boom score, and really lists almost every player on the slate. Sometimes guys in the lineup you don't expect, but other than that, you'll get a rating on all hitters. And yeah, I've talked about it a lot, but I certainly like to use it even for like mini stacks, finding 2 guys high up on the tournament edge that are hitting right together that people aren't looking at. A lot of different ways to use it, but yeah, we get both. Anything to add there? Stats?
No, yeah, we'll have them. Within like 10 minutes, I'll have both of those posted up on the site. This Detroit's kind of a real pain in the neck because that's the lineup we all want. And yesterday they were a little slow, and I imagine tonight they'll be a little slow to release it as well. But I'll hang on. I'll get one out quickly, and then if Detroit gets a lineup to us before the lock, I'll update it.
Yeah, awesome stuff. My favorite piece of content on the site is that boom report. So as I've mentioned a few times, really looking forward to the NFL version here coming up in about a week should be. So can't wait for that. Stats, let's go back over our favorite plays on the slate. We both agree Valdez, Sonny Gray, if you're trying to play it safe, if you're playing cash games, very good way to go. We're both on those guys. A little different question, I guess, than today. Who else are you looking at besides Valdez and Gray, who are the two most expensive, most popular pitchers on the slate? But talk to the people about some other options tonight.
Yeah, I think the two guys are we talked about McLean. I think he's got some upside here, and a guy who I don't think they've got any shackles on. I mean, he's going to go. So if we get the strikeouts and he's looked like he's got that potential to give us a big strikeout day, I think he could be really interesting. And the guy I'm actually a little bit more concerned about, but I've got pretty high is Ryan Nelson there against Milwaukee. So I think the price tag is good. Wouldn't be shocked, obviously, if he got touched up. But I think the K numbers in the market are pretty strong for that 7,700 price tag. So those would be the two guys outside of. You could almost throw Ohtani in there as well, but Valdez and Gray I think are your two clear top options, and then those would be my three guys right below.
Yeah, makes sense to me. We're mostly on the same pitching tonight. I do like all those guys. I'll throw in two others into the mix that'll be lower owned. I do like Eric Lauer's chances against Toronto. I think he's a little bit underprojected. And then Ryan Bergert, the other guy for KC that I like against Chicago, cheap and will be low owned as well for people looking to get a little bit different. I do feel pretty good about both those contrarian options at pitcher tonight. Let's go to stacks. Stats, who do you got as your top three stacks tonight?
Oh, let's see. As far as stacks go, I love the Detroit stack. I think that's my favorite stack. I like Texas tonight, and let's go with I'm going to go with the Cubs. So I'm going to go with those three stacks. I like a few stacks, but I'll go with those three.
Yeah, I am in on the Cubs as my number one, specifically looking at mostly the right-handed bats there. Obviously, you can play Tucker and PCA as well. I do like the Rangers quite a bit against Jack Klanowitz, one of the worst pitchers going on this slate. And then I'll throw in the Brewers as looks like very contrarian stack against Ryan Nelson. So we'll disagree a little bit on that one. But yeah, those three for me make sense. Cubs will be my highest owned stack tonight for sure. Let's get to pick six then. I'll switch out the screen share quick, and we'll do a quick pick six. We do have three options for the boost here, Stats. Either Ohtani more than 5.5 strikeouts, that's boosted 1.3. Soto over, or to get one hit or more, that's 1x, and then 1.3x from Ohtani, the hitter, on 1.5 total bases. Which of those three looks best to you?
You're going to disagree, but I'm going to take – I like the Soto one. I have a feeling you like the Ohtani 5.5, not the hits. I don't know. That's what I would guess you would take.
I think I would go with Ohtani bases, but they do all
you like the Soto bases? Okay.
No, we're going with stats.
Let's go. I like that Soto over a half hit. I mean,
yeah,
one hit, right?
Yeah.
We could do that.
No issue with that whatsoever. You're not going to like the stats. I'm going to Ryan Bergert. I've had some good luck with most of these scrub pitchers. I think he's getting the 4.5 strikeouts he needs. So Ryan Bergert over 4.5 strikeouts will be mine. Over to you, Stats, for your next one.
I'm going hit run RBI over 1.5 for Wyatt Langford.
There we go. Wyatt Langford over 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. I'm going back to one of my contrarian pitchers, Mr. Eric Lauer, to get 4.5 strikeouts. Stats, your third call here.
Yeah, the third one's going to be tough. All right, I'm going with the game on the earlier slate, the Boston-Baltimore game, and I'm going to go with Rafaela singles. He's got to get us over a half. I'm going to go over the half on Rafaela. I know I make you search over a half. The second one up there, right? Is that
it's not a complete pick six without.
Oh no, singles. I want singles. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, we got to get a wacky one in there.
Yeah,
but it helps the payout.
Exactly. I like it with Rafaela. Give me some Riley Green here. Let's go on yard again. We'll take the 1.6 easy money on the Riley Green home run. Gives us Riley Green to go yard, Rafael to hit at least one single, Lauer to get 4.5 strikeouts, Langford over 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs, Berger to get over 4.5 strikeouts, and Soto boosted to get at least one hit in this game. All right, stats. That's pick 6. That's all 10 games on this slate. The show will be back tomorrow. It could be a solo edition of DC, but I will be here, maybe with somebody at 11 Eastern time, talking some early slate baseball. I'm sure a lot of you will be there then. Appreciate the support, as always. See most of you guys tomorrow morning. Until then, he's Stats. I'm DC. We're out of here.